Hello, can you hear me?
Hey, what's up, buddy?
Hey, awesome. Alrighty. Oh man, it's been a year. Holy
Wow.
crap, over a year. No, it's been good. Been crazy. I guess we can talk about in general of how life's been, but I guess just briefly, how's life been in the last year?
Life's been fine, just doing my thing.
Fair enough. Okay, so there we go. Let me just get everything going. Just give another quick sound check.
Testing 1 2 1 2. Testing 1 2 3.
Awesome. All right, let me get that done. We gonna work. What's happening here? There we go. Awesome. Just getting this up and sorted.
I am gonna say it.
Going. Awesome. Alrighty. Well, I guess we can just hop straight into it. So, welcome everyone to Red Suit Interviews, and I'm joined again by a man, most certainly mythical, potentially legendary, depending on the sources, Mr. Destiny. Thank you for joining me again.
Hey, thanks for having me again, buddy.
Yeah. So it's been a year, and I think a year and a couple of months since the last we talked. So there's been a lot that's been happening. It seems like in your world, and I basically for this interview, I just want to go over most of those topics that have sort of appeared over the last year and whatever months, as well as just a few other things that I'm just sort of curious about.
Sure thing.
And I think the first thing we touch on is just sort of your move. The big one is the move to California. Has it exceeded or differed from what you expected?
I don't know. I think it's so far things have gone pretty okay. It's hard to say. I didn't hang out with as many people as I thought I would. But then I've also made friends I thought I never would, and I've gotten opportunities that I thought I never would either. So like for instance, like my relationship with Jesse Lee Peterson has been interesting, and I don't think I would have had the opportunity for that had I not been down here. And then there's been a couple of other close, like pretty important relationships I've formed as well, just by virtue of being down here too. So
Yeah. Has it changed? Like, was your going into this especially? Did it differ in any way? Was there anything that sort of shocked you about moving to California that you didn't initially realize?
from in terms of like a living shock, not really. I mean, I kind of expected it, and it was more or less what I would expect. I learned a lot about like housing policy and stuff that blew my mind for how dumb a lot of that stuff is. But yeah, otherwise, no, I think things are about as I would have expected them to go.
Okay. I guess now the next big thing that's happened, I guess, in the last year is definitely the lefty arc.
Yeah.
So I very much doubt that people who are watching this wouldn't know what's going on, but just for the people who on my channel who aren't are aware of this, could you give just a brief overview of what's happened, especially with you and interacting with the left sphere or bread tube or whatever you want to call it?
I would just say that like online, it seems like people on the left slant a lot more extreme than people on the right, or not. I'm sorry, not that people on the right. I shouldn't say. People on the left like slant a lot more extreme than I would expect people in real life to. So, for instance, like you'll see like a higher representation of people that are like socialists or Marxists or whatever online than you would like in real life, electorates, which has been kind of extreme or crazy, I guess.
Yeah, and so more specifically in terms of your interaction with them, how has that sort of developed? Because initially, when we started conversating, you're friends with like Hassan, a lot of other, I guess, lefties were sort of within your social circles or in your community, and that's drastically changed. So, what happened sort of with that?
I think basically the big problem was that like I'm not a communist, so I kind of got like excommunicated from from a lot of these groups, I guess, where people started to like pretty viciously attack me or anything I'd say just because I'm not like an actual communist. Yeah.
Fair enough. And look, I've seen a lot of I've seen a lot of the conversations, obviously in preparation as well, and obviously a lot of them came in a very, I guess, bad faith perspective, especially with Mike from whatever Mike from PA,
Yeah.
with Alabral and certain conversations like that. Do you think, though, that this has now tainted your perspective on lefties? That even if you sort of come in with like a new lefty, that will make it harder for you to engage with them than it would like a regular person talking about a different subject?
Online, it seems to have a little bit. I think in real life, I think it's really important to keep in mind that real life people are not like people that you find on YouTube or Twitch. So like just because, you know, people on YouTube and Twitch are insane fucking socialists everywhere, it doesn't mean that like an average person that supports, say, Bernie Sanders or even Corbyn in the UK or whatever, like these average people aren't like as extremely left bent as a lot of the online content creators are.
So in that case, do you care
ATM bar.
about your, like, I guess sort of not, I don't want to necessarily put you on a bad light here, but do you care about now that sort of it's influenced now your conversations if you had another conversation with a lefty YouTuber or a lefty creator or whatever?
What do you mean by that?
So like, does it bother you that now that sort of with these conversations that it could affect your future conversations with other lefties?
Like in what way, I guess? Like that they know that I'm not a lefty, or like,
or just sort of like, because I was sort of, it seems like you've got a couple of sort of predetermined sort of notions when it comes to sort of dealing with lefties. Like for example, on the was it the Big Brain podcast, you sort of talked about how lefties, there's a lot of lefties that are very much anti Hong Kong and etc. And obviously there are people in your community that, or not in your community as such, but in the left-wing communities on the internet, there are like strong groups about that. But do you think that because of now those small minorities are now affecting a larger sort of bit
like
more
in terms of like
brush?
they think that like other people are thinking poorly of me now as a result of that, or it hampers my ability to have
I'm more going sort of like, because in the Big Brain podcast, I can't remember which one exactly, you mentioned that there's a lot of lefties that are closeted sort of, I guess, China supporters or whatever.
Yeah.
And do you think that's sort of like a fair assertion to make in general?
Of the broader people, no. Of people that I seem to talk to online, that seems to be the case. That seems to have been the case. But like, I don't think it is representative. This is one of the reasons why I didn't want to do these conversations so much with these people. So I don't want to give like a misrepresentation of what like a normal average human being believes, because I don't think it's like this insane level of like worshiping of like unironically of like the USSR and stuff. I don't think that the average person thinks that. But online, it seems like I got that a lot more than I would have expected to, where I run into people that have like a whole bunch of like pro USSR stuff posted, or, you know, saying a whole bunch of like unironic, you know, like kill all capitalists, kill all homeowners, kill like stuff like that is really weird. But I don't think it represents the average person. I think that's just the insanity of like online conversations.
No, fair enough. I can understand where you're going with that. So I guess from here now, so you've just mentioned before about that you're sort of trying to avoid these conversations with sort of these lefties. Is there any other things that you're trying to sort of rectify this in your sort of creative space, or I guess platform as well?
I mean, I just like to make sure that like people that follow me aren't getting, I guess, drafted into like from one extremist group to another. Like if you come and you find my content and you like me because maybe we're alt-right and I've shown you like maybe different ways to think about problems, I would hope that that doesn't mean that you instantly become like you know, like an insane like socialist like out of that. Like I would hope to foster a little bit more critical thought process in you than somebody that would just go from one extreme to the other. ContraPoints in one of her videos, you know, echoes a similar sentiment.
Yeah. And why do you think that people engage very harshly, especially online, especially with the extremes? Do you think it's possibly because with these, I guess, extreme ideas that it comes sort of people seeing it as a hobby-based perspective in terms of the like socialist utopia, almost sort of viewing it in a, I guess, idealistic way rather than sort of in a practical way?
I think for a lot of people, I think it's just like tribal. Like I think people just like to feel like they belong with a certain group of people, and they get like the satisfaction of being in a group of people with the whatever online community they identify with. You know, whether it's alt-right or whether you're a socialist or tanky, or whether you're a gamer or a fan of Justin Bieber. Like people just like to feel like they have a group that they belong to, and they care more about belonging to a group and defending that group and attacking outsiders than they do about anything that the group purports to stand for, I think.
Yeah. You mentioned also before the disconcerting use of Soviet iconography, eat the landlords terminology, all that sort of jokes. Now, I'm not trying to like do anything harsh here, but do you think because as well, like Dan Harkin, Hark Dan or whatever it is, his name is. He often makes a lot of jokes as from the landlord sort of purge the the house.
A-tab, all tenants are bastards. Is his
Yeah.
name. Yeah.
Do you think that sort of falls into a similar ship there, where it's where it can be a little bit not necessarily responsible to do that sort of
Yeah,
humor
so
as
like
well?
the way that I kind of look at it, and this is all like very subjective. You kind of have to go by how communities feel. I mean, like we talk a lot about housing on my stream. This is probably one of the policy things we've talked the most about over the past couple months. We've talked a lot about housing policy. I think most people know where I stand on housing. That housing should be available to everybody. That we should find ways to make this happen. And I think most of my community feels that way as well. I think usually when we're doing ATAB stuff and we're looking at Dan, I think most people like recognize that as being like an extremist position and that it's just kind of a meme. If I started to find unironically that like people in my subreddit were starting to post things like, yeah, like tenants are actually pieces of shit, and I do think that homeless people all fucked up and deserved. If I started to see like comments like that get upvoted, I would start to become like really worried about that. But I think for the most part, we all kind of laugh at it and realize it's a little bit insane.
Okay, I
I don't believe that it's the same when people talk about like the Mayo side and the white Mayo, blah 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 blah. Because I unironically have people throw these insults at me. I did this last night. I had a debate on trans issues, and in the middle of nowhere, one guy says, "Well, what do you know? You're just white male." It's like, wait, what the fuck does me being white have to do with trans debates? Like, wait, why are we even? So like, I mean, like if that stuff started to become more prevalent in my community, I would definitely push back on it if I saw that happen for sure. But I feel like Dan and me and most people in here make it pretty clear that it's a meme. But yeah. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it's
okay. So you're not sort of concerned until you sort of see that real effect in your community.
Yeah, that's when I get nervous. Is when
Okay.
it seems like it's not really a meme anymore. That's when I start to get like really scared. Because I actually did I follow like a lot of the white people memes too. I'd make fun of like white people, white culture, like the Mayo is blah blah blah. A guy did that for a long time too. Like I'm ready to fucking kill these capitalists. This is ridiculous. I'm pretty sure I even had tweets like that, where I said shit like that. But then I just got uncomfortable because I started to realize that a lot of the people that echo this type of rhetoric don't seem to be joking. Not that they're about to go, grab arms and go out and like start killing capitalists, but like they do unironically seem to think that a lot of these beliefs are good, that we do need to kill the bourgeois, and like I don't know, that makes me really uncomfortable.
But that's still a minority in that community within itself, don't you think? That it's
Yeah, that's that extreme. Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
yeah.
But the online content creators seem to foster and harbor it, which is what scares me.
How would you say that they foster and harbor it?
Like when you deny the fact that a lot of the stuff that you have on your channel is supposed to look like, it's supposed to harken back to the USSR. When you say things like, Stalin was better than Nixon, and when you say things like, sure, Russia might have done some bad things, but the U.S. does capitalism and kills 5 million people every day, and like I don't think that a lot of this, like when you start engaging in that level of like historical revisionism and like denialism, and I think that I think it's not good. I think it's not a good meme.
But a lot of these creators as well are like Mike isn't big.
True.
Do you think like scale wise as well as these creators that realistically that most people wouldn't be going down in terms of size?
Yeah, I think that a lot of them are largely relevant because they don't have the ability to talk to people that don't agree with them already. That's been ironically, one of my criticisms of them. But like, yeah, I mean, I don't think that they're that important, like on the overall landscape. I do think that there are some big lefties that are more important that disappoint me a lot. So like, the Chapo Trap House people, or sometimes a lot of the stuff that Michael Brooks says, or Kyle Kalinske. Like, and I think these people are similar in a lot of ways to people like Mike from PA and whatnot. So.
Yeah, understandably. Just even going closer to the Trapo Chap House stuff, you make a lot of comments like the Trapo Chap House Reddit, Redditors or whatever. Do you agree there's sort of an implicit involvement with the creators themselves whenever you sort of make fun of this community, or do you intend to do that?
Like, am I holding the community responsible, or?
All the creators, because I remember at one point you said that that these, or you don't have anything necessarily against the Trapo Chap House people. This might be a while ago and your opinions changed, but it's the people inside that community that you find toxic.
Oh yeah, for sure. I actually don't. I don't know if I've listened to almost anything the Chapo like podcast has said. I think I've gotten like a couple clips every now and then. But like, yeah, the communities themselves seem to be insanely cancerous.
Yeah, and it's just, do you feel? I guess I don't necessarily beg the question, but do you feel like it's I guess not necessarily inappropriate, but wrong to sort of indict the creators in with the people within their communities when you sort of say the trap out, the Chapo trap.
Yeah,
It sort of
actually,
gives them,
it a little bit is because it's possible that maybe like the Chapo Trap House people like totally disavow their community and they say like, oh yeah, our community is way more extremist than we'd like them to be. That it's possible that they do say that. And actually, I haven't looked at that at all. Maybe it behooves me to do that. I should. Do they do that?
okay.
Do you know?
I have no idea. I'm with you. I have not watched anything of theirs, so
Okay. Because my
uh,
understanding is that like I know that they don't like the community because they can be toxic sometimes, but my understanding is that they're like pretty hardcore socialist. The Chapo Trap House people in general, like I think they've got like an anarcho communist and like shit like that. But yeah, I know that a lot of people point out like, oh, they shit on their Reddit all the time, but I don't know if that's just because their Reddit is kind of crazy sometimes or a little toxic, or if they actually disavow the more extremist like authoritarian leftist beliefs. But
yeah. Step from there. Is there anything from dealing with the lefty communities that you regret now in how you've conducted yourself or how you've done certain things? Is there anything that you've regretted in doing this?
um. Not really, I don't think. I wish I wouldn't have been so charitable in the beginning. I mean, I've learned a fuck ton being over here. Ironically enough, people say like, "Oh, you don't know anything about like history or this or whatever." So, I mean, I've done like a lot of reading and research, and I know a lot more stuff than I did coming into it. But the strange thing is that like I was like very, very charitable to a lot of extreme left positions. I was incredibly charitable to them, just because I kind of assumed that my capitalist education and all that was pretty biased against it. But I've actually come out like incredibly negative towards a lot of the more left leaning ideas now as a result of like all my reading and everything. So yeah.
Okay, understandably. I guess now moving more into your, I guess, fallouts now because of this, I guess, arc. Uh, Two that stand out strongly that have dramatically changed in terms of your relationships, and that being Bad Bunny and Hassan. I could be wrong, there could be more that sort of have been a much larger fallout. Uh, but specifically with Bad Bunny first, uh, a brief overview for people who don't know. What happened? Because you seemed very good friends at one point, and now you're not, or not necessarily great friends, or just acquaintance, or whatever you want to call it.
Oh yeah, I don't think
But
my
now,
personal relationship with Bad Bunny has anything to do with anything. I think that in general, these are all just like people that like constantly would like bring me up or shit talk me without like because I'm not purist enough. Or anytime I'd have a conversation or a debate, they'd like run back to a group of friends and they'd all talk about like how horrible I was. And I guess that was just getting irritating to me. So I decided to engage them in a more front way, I guess, like directly about it.
okay. And also because of the Bad Bunny, there's been drama around her grifting because of leaked Discord messages, especially. Uh, why do you think? Because I've sort of looked into it as well. Like her stats aren't like fantastic, or haven't really dramatically increased significantly. What other reason do you think she gained from grifting in this sort of lefty circles?
I think Um, I, I get talking about this, but I feel kind of uncomfortable. I don't want to like personally attack somebody like over and over again. I mean, like, yeah, I think I have like my suspected reasons, but it feels kind of shitty to just shit on her relentlessly, I guess. So I don't know. I don't want to. Yeah.
Yeah. That's all I sort of really with Bad Bunny, but with Hassan, I don't want to call you the clout chaser or whatever, or like infer that or get any clips. I want to specifically sort of focus on one point with the Hassan situation. And that was the Boog and Nick debate with on the Trainwrecks podcast or whatever. Obviously there was a lot of it was a shitstorm of a conversation. What do you think went well and what obviously went poorly in the debate?
I mean, I thought that my conversation went well, and I thought that anytime Hassan talked, it didn't go quite as well.
What about Hassan's conversation do you think that wasn't good?
I think that like live debate is very, very, very hard. It's like it's a type of skill or a type of muscle that you have to practice quite a bit. And if you don't have practice doing it, it's like very difficult to just come up with it on the fly. So for Hassan, he hadn't practiced it as much, and I just felt like it kind of showed a little bit. Like I don't necessarily think that makes somebody stupid or worse or lesser or something, but just it was like pretty clear that he didn't have as much experience with that. Yeah.
Going further, even with that debate, having two people trying to sort of two-sided because it's obvious that like Sargon and Nick were on one side and you and Hassan were on the other. Did you find that dynamic difficult to maneuver, having like this team debate?
Yeah, unfortunately, because like anytime if Hassan were to bring up a point that I would like completely disagree with, I would get roped into having to defend it, which was very difficult. Yeah.
Mm.
Like, for instance, like Hassan would maybe we might talk about something that has nothing to do with like economics, and all of a sudden it would become a debate on socialism very quickly. And then I would have to kind of give the positive positions of socialism, even though I'm not a socialist, which was very strange and not comforting to me. Yeah.
And then going off from there, do you think you would do another team debate, even with someone that you deemed the best live debater, best whatever in terms of knowledge, experience in debates? Would you feel comfortable doing a two-person on two debate again?
I think depending on who it is. Man, I hope he doesn't do anything to so many. I've had so many people that I've lost respect for over the course of this entire like debating the lefties arc. The one person that I think I still haven't heard say anything incredibly stupid, Sam Cedar, still seems to be like a pretty good guy. I haven't heard him say anything dumb. He seems like a really smart dude. I feel like being on his side for anything would be a lot of fun. That's my feeling. Yeah.
No, I've seen a lot of the debates. He's quite fun to watch in that regard. Now, moving on to...
I'm sorry. David Pakman seems like a really cool guy as well. I don't know how comfortable he is in like a live debate format though. But Sam Cedar seems like he definitely would be. But yeah.
Mm.
Okay.
So you wouldn't be opposed to a two-person debate? Again?
Not necessarily, depending on how it's set up. No, I think I'd be okay with it. Yeah.
Okay. Now for the next big controversy that's sort of gone your way this year, the N-word saga.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to necessarily get into like the specifics of what was right or wrong or whatever. Do you regret anything about your manifesto?
No, not at all. I'm glad I did it. It actually went so much better than I thought it would. I stayed up like 12 hours past my bedtime writing that. And honestly, my goal was there was so much stuff that was said that was just not true. I just wanted to have an account of what actually happened. That was my only goal. I didn't actually think anybody would come around to my side at all. I figured that I would still be like the horrible demon, like fucked up, whatever. But I didn't care. I just wanted to make sure because so much stuff was being said that was so incorrect that I just wanted to have an account of everything. Like, this is what was said. People that are like saying this thing are fucking insane, and here it is. And I expected to get shit on relentlessly for it, and that was it. But that was okay. I just wanted it to come. But yeah, the reception was actually a lot better than I thought it would be.
Yeah, and I guess in specifics there, how you sort of talked about Tri-X in that manifesto, do you think you approached that one well?
I think that I was really heated. I don't hate Tri-Hex. I think we're okay now. We haven't had any one-on-one time or whatever. Tangentially, I think we're okay. Yeah, so I mean, I probably could have been gentler on him, but holy fuck, dude. I was getting dicked from all sides, and you know what? Sometimes you just gotta let go,
Take that collateral with it. That's pretty... the only other thing I think about myself with the N-word saga, do you think you could have made a stronger differentiation between using the term in private with a racial motive versus not? Because I personally know a couple of people that use the N-word in private. And after hearing the conversation, they sort of like, oh, it's fine to use it in private. However, a lot of the times they use it is definitely in not a positive sense. Like when you talked about jokes in private, you talked about the South Park joke where the joke isn't about...
Yeah, if you're just driving around and you see homeless people and you're like, yeah, I fucking hate N-words or whatever. Like, yeah, I mean, that's not funny. It's not a joke. You're just being fucking racist. Yeah, of course. I think I did draw this line a few times. I tried to distinguish it a couple times. I don't think anybody actually gave a fuck what my position was at the end, though. It more just became like a big attempt at character assassination, which is basically all anybody cared about. So maybe I could have tried a little bit harder to be more clear on what I thought was acceptable and unacceptable uses of the word, but it didn't really seem to matter. Like everybody was just basically trying to come after me, like was out to get me, I think.
Yeah. Okay, that's all I really had to say about that. It's a pretty dead meme now anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Another big interesting thing that's happened in the last year is now obviously if you don't want to talk about it, that's obviously fine. It's getting a bit more personal sort of regards. Is your conversations about sex online? Uh, with the last year, you've definitely increased sort of your conversations around sex and relationships. How has your audience, or has your audience, first of all, shifted with your increased talks about sex? And your audience's reaction, does it make you want to talk about it more or less?
Um, wait, like you asking if I like got more chats in my audience, or what is wait, what exactly is the
Like
question?
the
Like my
perception
audience
of
all became sexually active, or
no. I'm talking more specifically about the perception of your conversation or your talks around sex and relationship, because I know initially you talked about how your relationship, or not your relationship, when you talked about sort of sex and relationships, that your audience was, I don't necessarily want to say opposed, but kind of
yeah, it
weird
seems
about
like
it.
so. This is a very, very, very complicated conversation, but like basically, men in society today see themselves as being worth more if they can get more sex with more people. It's a huge thing that like men see that as like a really good thing. So when I talk about sex, people very quickly project that onto me, like, oh, Destiny's talking about sex. The reason why is because he's trying to show everybody how cool he is and how alpha he is and blah, 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 and like blah, blah, blah. So now we either need to shit on him for it or whatever. Like it gets into like really weird territory where like I can't, like if you bring up anything about sex at all, then you're basically met with like the online equivalent to like weird flex, bro. Like it is kind of toxic and kind of stupid. I figured that like I guess if you talk about it enough, like in a somewhat responsible way, like hopefully like people get over that. I think it's gotten a little bit better, but yeah, like yeah, I don't know, it's kind of shitty. Like you can't really bring up anything related to sex without people being like, oh, we get it, you know, I'm sex, oh, I get it, dude, you know, I'm sex. Like okay, dude, like yeah, I don't know, because people have such a toxic.
Does that reaction make you want to talk about it more though, to try and shift that?
A little bit, but not really. I mean, I don't like go seeking conflict, believe it or not, but
Okay. Uh, Going into that, because it's not even what you've got yourself in a. I don't want to make you like you got yourself in a unique position where you're in an open relationship.
uh-huh.
Do you think that do you think that's contributed especially to the sort of pushback or
Oh yeah, anytime
weirdness?
anything related to me sexually comes up, it results in a whole bunch of people getting very interested in my personal life and making a lot of very strange projections. Jesus Christ, I'm reading like borderline erotica on some of these subreddits where it's like Destiny. Wait, what is the rating for your show?
I don't care.
Oh, yeah. Dude, I read this one post where some guy was like, Destiny comes home to Melina's, like, stretched out pussy from this throbbing, veiny, big black cock that's ruined. It's like, holy shit. Like, I feel like I'm reading, like, a guy's, like, fucking sexual fantasy. Like, it's insane. Like, and I don't know if it's, like, a lot of projection that these are things that these people actually
you are
into
in an
at the
open
time.
relationship, so.
Yeah, but I don't think that means that I'm what? Yeah. Nice, good one. But yeah, holy shit, it's insane. And I've noticed on LSF that there's a lot of brigading coming from like weird, like alt-righty, like tradcon, traditional conservative communities that use a lot of words now that I'm like very like makes me wonder. So like I would expect to be called like a cuck and everything. Like people do that. That's like a mainstream insult or whatever. But I see a lot of insults targeted towards me that are on the lines of like degeneracy, hedonistic, I think like destruction of values. Like I see like a lot of weird things like that where it's like this actually sounds like a little bit more like ideologically coherent than just a bunch of nerds on the internet calling me a cuck. Like it feels like this is actually coming from like a traditional conservative community that has like a big bend towards like this, you know, this like cultural conservatism, I guess, which is kind of weird.
Obviously, these people are very, very concerned because, they are trying to obviously convince you to be in an open relationship, just like punctual Western values. Okay.
Yeah,
They're just very concerned about that.
something like that.
Yeah. Uh, ooh, Getting into sort of, because when I like personally for myself, seeing an open relationship, it's interesting for me because how you perceive relationships, I could be wrong. You could see it the same way to an extent. Seems like a different perspective.
For sure.
How did you shape into that, especially because this is your first sort of open relationship?
That's lasted this long or whatever. Yeah, for sure. Or like my first like real like open. Yeah, I guess like basically I don't know. I really I like sex. And I like having sex with new people. It's like a lot of fun for me. So I figure that it's hard to do that in like monogamous relationships. So there you go. Yeah, basically that's it. Yeah.
was there anything going into it, especially that caught you off guard that you didn't expect?
Not really, I don't think. I mean, everything more. I mean, like, it's still like a lot of work. You have to balance out things to make sure that like everybody's happy with the arrangement, everybody's like feeling okay and everything. Like, you still have to pay attention to a lot of stuff like that. But
Yeah. What was the starting point? Because were you sort of before moving to California, etc. I'm not trying to equate the two, but before moving to California, I'm not 100% sure that this was in your world at that point in time.
oh yeah, it was
What was
definitely
your
something I was interested in. Like I had said, like after my last, well, actually after my last serious relationship, I said I was just never dating again because I don't think I can handle like relationships because I'm so busy and I work and all that shit. I just don't have time. But then after that, I was like, well, actually, you know what? If I did do another relationship, it's gonna be an open one, 100%.
Okay. And another interesting thing, moving into the open relationship sphere as well, a bit more. You mentioned now that you had more sexual relationships with Guy. And a really interesting point that really stuck out to me in one of your streams you talked about was how when you've had any sexual encounter, or not any, but when you've had sexual encounters with men, they're more likely to push boundaries in terms of going to things that you're not as comfortable with.
Yeah.
What other things have you sort of seen that men do that have been different for you to what different compared to women?
I don't know. I'd say that's like the big one. Otherwise, it's hard to like generalize, and even what I've said so far might even be somewhat of a generalization. But yeah. I mean, yeah. I would just leave it there for now. I guess I don't know. It's not like I have experience with like dozens of guys or anything, so I can't really say. That's just like an observation that I made.
Okay, fair enough. I guess moving now on to travel. I just might not be. I might just not have heard the exact description about yourself. But you mentioned a lot. You enjoy being a hermit. You enjoy the indoor lifestyle. You enjoy staying in your house or your apartment or whatever.
Yeah.
What about traveling then has drawn you into it? That this last year you've traveled so often.
I generally just travel with people that if I have somebody that enjoys traveling, then I'll travel. That's it basically. Like I'm not big on it myself, but I've got somebody who like enjoys traveling with me that I can travel with. Then I just enjoy that. But that's it basically. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. I was wondering if there was like any cultural thing you care about or people, but I guess you sort of allude to that you don't really care about that stuff.
Yeah. No, I don't. I like being at home. I like debating. I like doing politics and philosophy. I like doing video games. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just disappointing you went to New Zealand instead of Australia. You know, it's just.
I mean,
New Zealand's kind of lame.
Firstly, New Zealand is not lame. New Zealand is fucking beautiful. I can visit more than just the coast.
New Zealand is the
country.
Canada of like Australia. Okay, that's what it is.
Your country is literally on fucking fire right now. Okay, I don't even know if we could make our way through the billowing smoke clouds to even find the airports to land. Okay, in any of your cities because your whole country is melting. All right.
It is amazing that like we have worse. We have worse. Pollution than China at the moment. That we're recommended to stay indoors most days.
Nice.
Which is kind of sad. But we have nice beaches, so you know.
New Zealand has nice beaches. Also, I can go to New Zealand in more than just the coast. I can drive inland. How
you
often?
You can do that too.
Really? You can drive. You can split the middle of Australia, and if you run out of gas, you just die, or what?
Well, sorry, let's think about this like in distance. Going inwards with New Zealand, like from me to come from the coast to a major city, you've pretty much traveled New Zealand twice, okay? There's obviously a large difference in terms of like inland distance. Come on, like this is an obvious fact that New Zealand is discount Australia. Okay, they speak weird.
Kind of salty. Are you okay? Does Australia and New Zealand
I'm
have
very salty right now. Okay, you've got me tilted. Okay.
Oh, okay. I guess I found one of the guys behind that big campaign to get New Zealand like not listed on any fucking map, huh? You're one of those people.
Well, I'm more of the people that just nuke it. But wait, I'm not allowed to say that, can I?
I don't know. You're gonna Irish ladder yourself. Good luck.
Yeah. Okay. In a video game. No,
New
Zealand's fine. New Zealand's fine, really. It's a nice place, but you know they stole the Hobbit from us, but that's okay. Sure. Anyway, moving on to another conversation point. Your public figure status. It's interesting when I sort of talk with people in regards to being a public figure because it seems very different depending on the person. How does how do you feel when, for example, conversation with me? We've talked before, but even before that, that I can come into a conversation with you, never met you before, but I have a deep, intimate sort of knowledge of your life. How like this? How does that affect you? Do you sort of care about that? Does that?
I mean, it doesn't really affect me much. It just is what it is.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I can't. I don't know how I can say like it affects me. Just, I mean, like everybody that meets me just knows a fuck ton of shit about me, which is kind of weird, but yeah, it is what it is. I'm kind of used to it by now. Like it's been like 10 years, that I've done this. So.
Yeah, and I guess stepping more further into that because there's parasocial relationships. I think uh, it's a thing that on Twitch that has become like much more common considering you have like we can talk.
Mm-hmm.
You're very open to talk with. I mean, you're very easy to contact.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that do you worry about trying to overcapitalize on parasocial relationships?
No, I think I'm pretty responsible, more so than I think a lot of streamers in terms of how I engage with my audience. Like I'm pretty clear. Like if you email me stuff about how you're suicidal or whatever, like I'm just gonna send you to a therapist. Like I don't deal with stuff like that. And then I'm pretty clear about the relationship that I have with my people. Like I'm pretty sure like for all the sub levels on my website, like I even list like if you sub to tier 2, I'm not gonna do fuck all for you. If you sub to tier 3, I'm also not gonna do fuck all for you. Like stuff like that. So I mean, I think I'm pretty clear on stuff like that.
Understandably. Then going with being a public figure, how has that sort of affected your personal relationships? I guess sexual, family. Has it played a larger impact in your life?
In terms of, can you say that again? What do you mean?
Yeah, so has your now public figure state had like a dramatic effect in how your relationships work?
Well, yeah, of course. Anybody that I have like a personal relationship with is gonna have to be ready to deal with an insane amount of like online shit because of how fucking crazy people are. Yeah, that's like the big one for friends that I have, and then but otherwise I'm kind of reclusive. I don't have like too many like real life friends, so I just kind of stick to myself. And then all my online friends obviously know what to deal with because a lot of them are streamers too. So
yeah, then I guess a very interesting thing for me is that you have a child in this and you go into spaces and conversations that I think most people would be uncomfortable with knowing that they have a child out there. Are you worried for when Nathan gets older to sort of know this side of you?
I don't care about him knowing me at all. That's fine. I'm very 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 open to my kid. I am a little worried about him getting bullied because of like my presence online. I don't know how that'll work. That's just going to be a bridge that I have to cross when I come to it. It'll depend on how people react to it. I mean, I could see it going either way, where I'm like an incredibly cool dad that's done cool stuff and everybody in his class thinks I'm awesome, or that like I'm a really weird dude that does crazy shit and everybody thinks he's a fucking loser. So I don't know what would happen. It could go either way. I'm not sure.
Does he understand that you're famous, like you're popular?
I think he does, but I think he takes it for granted because he's just so used to it. Like he introduces me to all this. He's like, "Oh, here's my dad. He's a YouTuber, but he cusses, so we shouldn't watch his videos." It's usually how he introduces me to his friends. Yeah.
Because you've been touching about you're worried about him potentially getting bullied in the future. Has your career spilled over into his life in other ways at the moment?
Not too much, no. I mean, sometimes he's on my stream a little bit, but like I try to keep it pretty separated. Like like he said stuff like, "Oh, like I want to be a YouTuber and whatnot." And I tell him like, "Oh, you have to finish school if you want to do stuff like that. Like this isn't like a job that you can just rely on." So I mean, like I try to keep things like pretty separated and have it like relatively normalish.
Understandable. And another interesting thing I'm sort of going to move on to now is your new interview series. You're talking about doing a new interview, new podcast that involves like specific people with vast knowledge, vast background in certain topics, and having a deep discussion with them on those certain topics. Is that correct? Like, am I getting anything wrong?
Yeah, I'd like to. Yeah, I'm still trying to think of the specifics of it, but yeah, for sure.
So I've seen other conversations or other interviews I've had with figures like that. I can't remember his name, but he was ex-military who's now running, I can't remember, but he was like a nuclear engineer in the Navy, I'm pretty sure.
Sure.
And you had a conversation with him in an interview. And it's obvious that you approach an interview versus a debate differently.
Yeah, for sure.
In terms of you concede certain points, you're sort of going along with the process. So how do you, in those certain conversations, decide between when you want to push back versus just sort of let something slide?
It super depends on what I've prepped the person for coming in. Like if I'm on like with Dan, if I'm on like a podcast and we're just talking about a dude who's like a business guy or whatever, I'm not going to be like, it's time to go fucking hard because he said something stupid about housing policy. Or if I've agreed to bring on like somebody running for Congress, like, oh, you know, I'm going to ask some questions that are going to push a little bit back, but I don't want the person to feel like they're being like fucking assaulted on my stream. You know, I don't want to have that perception.
Yeah. Playing devil's advocate just a little bit. Do you think, though, it's arguably more important, especially with those people who are running for office, to push back a little bit more? Because these are people who will, like, compared to having a conversation with Mike, who has very little to no impact in real life, and how hard you'll go over topics with him versus someone who's a politician who has a real impact in life. Do you think?
It's a balancing game, right? Like, and that's still something that I have to figure out. And what I will be figuring out with my show is like, I need to have conversations that are responsible. So for instance, I'm not going to let somebody come on here and talk about like, yeah, you know, we need to do something about the Jews taking over society and not push back at all. But I don't want people, but you're not going to have any access to anybody if everybody feels like they're coming to the fucking Thunderdome, you know, when they come to have a conversation with me.
Obviously.
So yeah, so you have to balance it out. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I understand. Like, yeah, you don't want to have a space that's not conducive. So, do you think going even further with that? Because I feel bad now not knowing his name and not checking this up. But obviously, you have a left-wing audience, and he's running in left-wing, the Democratic Party. Do you think your audience plays a factor in how hard you would go in on someone in an interview?
No. Like in terms of like what I let them like, no, I don't let my audience dictate my content ever.
It's not even necessarily about dictating. For example, because you've talked about, you've just slightly touching back to like the left wing and how you've discoursed that you feel more, not necessarily responsible, but you feel a stronger urge to fight back against these lefties because it's impacting your space or impacting what you're trying to do. Do you think having a, I guess, left-wing politician come on, do you feel like you're more obliged to sort of push back a little bit against them just so they're not, I guess, using your audience a little too much?
Yeah, I mean, like it like I said, it's all of this is going to come down to what kind of conversation I've prepped the person for. Yeah, that's it. Like if I bring somebody in and I tell them like, hey, you know, we're going to talk about this today and be ready to fight, then we're going to go hard on things. But like if I bring a person in and, you know, they just think they're here for like a whatever normal conversation or some shit, like I'm not going to be, you know, assaulting them on stream.
Obviously.
Yeah. Now that might influence like who I decide to bring in, for what purpose. So for instance, like I'm not going to bring in like Richard Spencer and tell him like, hey dude, like, when you come in, like, it's just going to be a chill conversation and we're going to have fun. Like, yeah, just be easy about it, right? If I bring in somebody like that, or like Nick Fuentes, right? Like, we're going to be challenging what they're saying, of course. Yeah.
Obviously. No, I get that. You don't want to start sort of letting him go and talking about cookies or whatever the hell.
Yeah.
The baking thing. So, obviously you haven't started this, but you've stepped into this field, especially with the Startups podcast, the other conversations you've had. So for you, what would make a good interview to you on your new show?
A good interview. I guess like my dream interview stuff would be that like getting both sides of a conversation topic and then like, or of a policy rather, but then being able to have like a really informed conversation about it and then having like a good comprehensive like understanding of both sides of a given topic. So for instance, if we want to debate something like minimum wage, having like multiple like PhD level economists that have published research that have like given their opinions of both sides, like being able to have like, okay, fuck, this is all still like planning I'm not sure how I would want this to look out, but like here's like how I would dream of like my podcast going, right? Like the dream would be that I would do like 6 to 12 episode like seasons around certain policy positions. So I might have something on like we're going to do like the number of episodes would determine the specificity of a topic, right? So if we do 12 episodes, it's probably not going to be just minimum wage. It'll be a broader economic policy. But maybe we do 6 episodes on minimum wage, right? So what that might look like is the first episode might be a very pro minimum wage economist. The second episode might be a somewhat negative or very negative minimum wage economist. And then maybe episodes 3 and 4 might be people from Congress that have different opinions or ideas on it, or maybe somebody from a local legislature about it. And then maybe episodes 5 and 6 would be other popular figures that talk about it. Like basically, like you would have some episodes to get like a proper like academic footing on the topic, and then you start talking to policymakers or other popular people about said topic. And like that would be kind of like the dream in terms of like how you would associate with those topics, I guess. Does that make sense? Yeah.
No, I understand where you're going with that. Do you think now, because you've talked already about contacting certain people or just having a bit more few contacts and starting this podcast, has where you are with the online and etc., like your career, has that impacted how people respond to your wanting to start this? Has people been more interested because of this, like trying to do this as an online thing, like is it in front of a live stream?
More interested? What do you mean by that?
Well, I'm just muddling this up, but has people been, because obviously you're getting into more, I guess, mainstream guests, more, I guess traditional people, usually than what you would talk to. Has that been because your platform's obviously very sort of the new thing or whatever to them, has that been hard in trying to negotiate to them, or has that been a benefit?
I think people really want access to this space. I think some people are very desperate to get access to this space, especially on the backs of seeing like people like AOC. This is a person that is really a nobody that somehow has like international like fame because of her utilization of social media, right? This is just a congressperson from the United States, like that's it. But somehow they have like massive reach, and I think people are starting to see that like that social media can be a really important way to like reach out and communicate with people, as you see people get more and more popular on these platforms, then have more influence as a result of it. So yeah, I think people are pretty desperate for access to these platforms for sure.
Okay. And you mentioned before the bushfires, and that sort of made me think about this. There's been a recent controversy. I'm going to sort of go on a little bit, and I'll come to a question at the end of this. But
sure,
there's been a bit of a controversy recently, and for all my Australian people in the chat, please, you might know this already. There's been a footballer under the name of Israel Folau who made a sermon where he linked the bushfires to new laws being passed with gay marriage and
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. There's been a bit of controversy and stuff regarding
I'd
that.
imagine so. Yeah.
Yeah, this isn't even his first time doing this sort of stuff. He got fired from the NRL for posting like on the Bible page on his Instagram, basically saying like the gay like can't lie with the man or whatever. And so he's gone on with this like really extreme positions. And after this happened, I was sort of scrolling through my Facebook feed, and I saw my stepmom's dad shared this video, and it was the Australian Christian Lobby doing a video where this guy named Martin Illis, I'm pretty sure, basically played defense for him, and didn't read out his quote, didn't do anything, and was like it was the most slimy piece of shit thing I've ever seen in my life. And it got me so angry because it was something that he's got massive reach.
Sure.
And he's playing on the effects of people who are, I guess, old, who are, I guess, very indoctrinated in the religion. And it made me sort of want to question him on that, because he was basically saying, it was very, very reminiscent of alt-right talking points, where he'd say like, oh, the fake news isn't wrong. It was so wrong. He didn't actually say that.
The elites, like all of
yeah,
typical.
But then going on further, but saying, but Australia is a place of sin. The laws are bad, and almost sort of implying that even if he even if he said that, it's not actually that bad. And it was sort of this really disingenuous thing where it's sort of like make you distrustful, but also agree with the original sentiment in the first place. It's a really weird thing. But it made me, and this is where I sort of come to my question, made me really want to sort of call that out, but I don't feel comfortable at this point sort of going after someone like that who is like a master essentially at spewing bullshit. At what point do you think someone would be ready? And this is pretty subjective and may be hard to answer, but when do you think someone is at a point where they could actually really deal with someone like that in a public platform?
Man, that's a hard one. I don't know.
Yeah.
I learned through experience. Like a lot of my initial conversations with people were incredibly irresponsible and incredibly horrible. Like I had to learn through experience. I mean, I would say like working your way up from smaller opponents, kind of like working your way up to do it would be like a good start so that you get a feel for it. Like you're not like platforming like somebody with 20 million fucking views. So you kind of get like a feel for like, what are the arguments? How do people approach this stuff? You know, like that would be a good way to do it. And then I guess you just kind of have to feel it out. Like when do you feel like you're comfortable to deal with that stuff?
Yeah. When was your, I guess even going, because you're talking about working through and trying to have that more productive conversation. When were you finally more comfortable? When was the point where you were like, you know what, I've actually got this? What was the first debate where you're like, yes, this is the one where now I'm very much able to continue doing this?
I don't think it works that way for me. Like, I think it's been a very gradual process with ups and downs. Like some conversations I feel go incredibly successfully, then some conversations I feel like don't go very well at all. For me, it's a very gradual process. Like I talk to somebody, if I don't know enough information, I try to do the research later to get more information, and then I try to revisit the conversation. Like that's just generally how it goes. But like it's like a very gradual process. It's not like, like, and then I woke up, tomorrow and I touched my head and the master debater cap, had appeared there and I knew that I was ready to take on like any opponent. Like there are people today that I would absolutely crush that I knew I couldn't a year or two ago, especially left-leaning people. And there are people today that I would have crushed in the past, like somebody like Nick Fuentes, that I don't know if I could right now, because I just don't know if I know as much in that realm. So yeah, I don't know. It's just a very gradual process.
So what would you say then was your first successful one where now you can look back and go, because I know in the past you talked about like you wouldn't show this to like a college professor or anything like that in your debates, but you felt like you to the best of your ability dismantled the arguments.
I would say
what was the first one for you?
Yeah, my second Nick Fuentes debate is probably the best one I ever did. The second Nick Fuentes debate and then my debate with Lauren Southern were the two that I easily put in the most prep work for, although it seemed wasted because neither of them wanted to engage with any of the facts after they didn't have them. So but yeah, those were definitely two. But I mean, like I take a piece of information from every debate that I've done. Yeah. So I just try to gradually improve upon things. Like with debating all the left-leaning people, like I'm much less charitable now when people give takes about history, because I met so many left-leaning people that will just blatantly lie about history that I'm a lot more cautious when somebody says something. I'd be like, instead of just letting them ramble on, I might say like, okay, well hold on, like let's go look into that, or like let's talk about this later. And I try not to let people pivot as much. Like people will hop topics very quickly when they feel like they can't answer a question to something they do feel more comfortable with. I used to be willing to let people do that because I figured, well, we talk about whatever you want to talk about. But now I try to hold people's feet to the fire a little bit more on that, which I think I did really well with my third debate with Nick Fuentes on the podcast as well. So yeah,
with the train wrecks one.
Yeah.
So going even back to the Lawrence Southern. Oh crap! Just knocked my camera a bit. Going back to the Lawrence Southern and the Nick Fuentes one.
Mm-hmm.
What specifically outside of sort of the research and them not being able to get into facts do you think you did either rhetorically well or effectively?
The one thing that I think I did rhetorically well,
or just in general, like you don't have to be one thing. It could just be like a multitude of things, but just like going a bit more specifically into those ones.
I mean, I think my research was really well done. That would be what I thought was the best part of those conversations. Rhetorically, I've never been like a big person for rhetoric. So when I say rhetoric, I mean like a type of persuasive speech or speaking with the intent to persuade audiences. That's not generally my goal. I usually just try to be like factually correct on things, and then I hope that that's enough. But yeah, I think that my prep work for those two was sufficient, such that like. I think I had a lot to show there. I think I looked really good. I get a lot of people that still email me saying they saw those debates and that was like the first debate they saw that like really kind of pushed them in another direction in terms of how they viewed like the alt-right or people like that.
Yeah. Sorry, that was came with. Yeah, I understand where you're going with that. And going further on top of that, because you're talking more about getting back into the throw of things with
Conservatives.
The conservatives. Is there any other points that you really want to tackle? Is there another arc that you want to go down where you basically purge like X ideology?
I want to go back to conservatives. I feel like they're more of a threat and more relevant to the country than anything that these LARPing dipshit lefties are. So I think that it's more important to go after them. And it's fun too. Like ideologically, the problem is that with a lot of these lefties, like in terms of policy positions, I line up with like 95% of what we believe in. And then from a fundamental like psychological position, or I'm sorry, philosophical position, I line up like pretty closely as well. Really the only reason I spent so much time shitting on these people is because of the stupid purity testing they insist on. But with conservatives, there's a lot of ideological opposition at like every level of the conversation. Like we might have epistemic disagreements about like how can you even know something is true. We're gonna have we're gonna have ethics disagreements on like how, you know, what can we determine like ought to be done with a person in society. You know, we can have disagreements on science, like, you know, what's factually correct about something. So like empirical disagreements. We can have disagreements on like there's so many disagreements that I love to get into with conservatives. Disagreements on policies, on politicians, on historical. There's so many things we can go into. But with lefties, it was usually just them misrepresenting everything and not having a basic understanding of finance or economics, and then like just playing that game for like 7 hours. It's fucking boring as fuck. But yeah, and then knowing that like none of these people matter because they don't even have political representation. Like not only in my country, but in most places in the world, they don't even have political representation. Whereas like Donald Trump is the president in the U.S., and there's like this crazy conservative shit is happening like right the fuck now. So yeah, that's like stuff that I'm like way more excited to get back to and way more interested in as well.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, look, I'm excited to get back into that thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Look, I want another 6-hour 5v1 that I can sit and listen to for an entire day. That would be beautiful.
Oh yeah, that was conversation. Yeah. Hey, those were a lot of fun. I liked it. And I can't do it with the lefties because most of them are too scared to talk to me. So yeah, it'll be fun to like get back into the swing of that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I was almost so excited. The one I was listening to, where it was with the Peter Coffin discussion, and then how it sort of like all these people started jumping in eventually throughout it. I was really hoping that it would turn into one of those, but then it just sort of went lukewarm after a while.
Yeah, because they realized like how fucking God, Peter Coffin, Jesus. They realized how stupid a lot of their positions are. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, that video specifically, like, would you say that's probably one of the top bad faith videos you've seen made about it yourself?
I don't know. It's hard to top the Naked Ape one where I'm like a pedophile, rapist, daughter killing, whatever. That's a pretty hard one to top, but yeah, I don't know. My big problem with a lot of the lefty people, and I say this with lefties, but it's kind of true of people on the right as well, is that like nobody ever wants to own their position. And like, that's something that I think I'm really good at, but it's funny because like I'll be attacked over it. Like somebody will ask me, so I can give a good example with that Mike from CCP guy, right? Mike will ask me like, where we're debating with something, I'll be like, can you give me, so do you think there's any good part of fascism? Do you think there's anything good at all about fascism? And it's like, well, of course there is. There's like good parts to everything. Like no idea is completely and totally bad in everything. So like I'll list off like a couple, like, under a fascist regime, you're probably able to respond to problems in a more immediate fashion because you literally militarize the entire fucking country, right? And then he like goes off on me for trying to give like an even remotely nuanced answer on that. He's like, you think fascism is good, blah, blah. And it's like, no, dude, like what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, are you serious right now? But then when Mike is on a show and we had to talk about there was a woman that got thrown in jail for, no, I don't know if she got thrown in jail. She got charged with like, was it like sexual harassment or something? Because she went topless around her house with her kids. And she was saying, well, I think, did you hear about this?
Yeah, I watched the Roger video.
Oh, yeah. So on that show, I don't know if you remember me asking. I wish I would have stopped him from pivoting. Mike pivots like a master. He'll run away from so many questions. But Mike on that show was very adamant, like, well, it's not a big deal. I'm sex positive, blah, 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 blah. And for the most part, I actually agree with that. But I asked him, I was like, okay, I'm curious, Mike. Do you think it would be okay if I let my 21-year-old Swedish girlfriend run around the house with her tits out around my 8-year-old son? He wouldn't answer. Right? Now, you know what? I don't think that's a big deal. If you're pro-sex positive or whatever and they're just fucking boobs, yeah, fuck it. I don't know if I would care that much. That's fine, right? Now, I'll answer that, but Mike sure as fuck won't. And that's the problem with a lot of these people. So they won't actually answer a single fucking question about any of the things they supposedly believe in. Like, as soon as you have to ask them a hard question or something, they, like, retreat like a motherfucker. They won't own any positions. God damn, I hate the past year of my political discussions. It's been so incredibly disappointing to me. Ugh.
Look, I understand that. Look, there was a very easy incest open relationship joke, but I'm not going to devolve to that level of quality.
Yeah, thanks. That'll get cucked by my own
conversation,
8-year-old kid. That's a pretty Swedson-y take, my dude. I don't know if I want to go down that one, but
I'm not like that. Okay, I'm above that. But
Damn, this year was crazy.
do you think with the mic from PA that do you worry about going too far with someone like that, where you sort of just you become so overzealous in terms of trying to like shit on him that you might sort of overshoot and miss something?
No, I really try to like have a review of like the things that I've said recently to make sure that I'm not like going off the deep end. Like it is something that I think about a great deal. I would say that like, and I've said this multiple times on my stream, one of my greatest fears is getting trapped inside of an echo chamber where all of a sudden I look back after 10 years and I'm like, oh God, like I was so wrong on all of this because I ignored everything that was like pointing me in the direction. I try really hard to avoid that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, like, hopefully I do an okay job. It's something that I do think about quite a bit. So yeah.
Has there been any specific lefty creator
Damn,
that you
this
talked
year
to
was
that you really
crazy.
regret talking to or even bringing up?
Have there been any lefties that I regret talking to?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. I mean, there are conversations I think I could have handled better, but I mean, I've learned something from everything. So I like
Okay.
the only if I had like a regret, my regret would be not holding people's positions like as hard as they should be, I guess.
Well, going even more specifically, I can't remember his name as well, but it's the guy who equated like, oh, you know, Cuban life expectancy is way or higher than whatever. You know, that's a good thing. I can't remember who he was, but that conversation there were a lot of issues, and that you even pointed out afterwards.
Wait, which conversation? Sorry.
What's his name? I can't remember it. The guy who
Rewind.
does a lot with Russia Today. Who was
Caleb
basically-
Maupin or whatever, that fucking
Yeah, yeah.
slimy piece of shit. Fuck, that's a guy that I wish I could have held his feet to the fire more. God, I let him wiggle away so much because he's too much of a fucking coward to own any of his actual positions. That guy is an unironic tanky, but he'll never admit it because he's a coward. Sorry, go on.
I guess you're sort of in a slightly, I guess, more stressful space with being online and being a live streamer as well. Do sometimes you wish, because with interviews like that, it's not saying that you did poorly or whatever, but like you're like, you know what? I wish that I had a bit more time to sort of sit on that one before sort of that I could go over it again with him before sort of immediately going out live before you could have like another follow-up conversation with him or something like that.
I mean, like, I could do that with every single debate I've ever had ever. So I mean, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's because you're in a very interesting space where everything is live.
For sure, yeah.
There's not pre-recorded destiny. That's often appears. If you could go back then is there a particular debate throughout your entire history that you could go back and basically edit? Which one would that be?
If I could go back in my career and edit a debate, which one would it be? Oh, that's a hard one. Fuck. I guess maybe to do really good against Fuentes the first time rather than going back the second time, maybe. But I don't know. I thought that was a really good learning experience. So, or going back and undoing that whole 2-on-2 debate, I would like cancel that whole thing or just do it on my own.
We're not part of cancel culture, okay? That's not good, right?
Yeah.
So, stepping into. By the way, if you've got something to do, let me know because I've just got quite a few questions I sort of want to go through.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. I'm very interested because a lot of people who do debates, etc., and a lot of people in the rhetorical community don't generally engage with politics from like a specific philosophical moral set, where you always come into this coming from like a consequentialist perspective. Am I wrong with that? Or
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
Wait, am I wrong with? Or am I...
Oh no, yeah, you're correct. What you said is yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. And after doing that for myself personally, I'm going to go a little bit and I'll lead back to it. I was very sort of like, oh, you know, it's like having a consistent moral mindset makes it really is good to have in terms of having consistent outcomes. And after sort of hearing that from you, especially, I went on and tried doing that. But then there's certain things that sort of come along, especially when you have, like, for me, the first one, the big one for me was the veganism or like the animal thing.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I don't care about veganism. I can understand about it, but I'm not a vegan by any metric. And so when I go, you know, how am I going to justify my meat eating things? Where I go, well, you know, I can't really, animals, I don't care about them. And that's what I say. But then, you know, I'll see like a cute video of like an animal and I'm like, oh, I really care about this animal.
Yeah.
sort of leading back into you having this like very strong principle moral position or moral mindset you come from, do you find it difficult sometimes to stay consistent, or is there times where you sort of go, like, this is the right answer but I feel the other way?
I try to feel like I'm consistent on most things. I mean, I'm sure there are definitely things that I'm not, that I fuck up on. But like, I mean, yeah, like I try my best to make sure that I'm pretty consistent on most of the things I believe in. Yeah.
Oh, I'm not trying to like sort of say that you're not consistent,
Mm-hmm.
but like, is there anything where you go, I know this is right, and you say it publicly, but then in the back of your head, you're like, you know what, I really though, I'm not 100% into that.
No, never. I never do that. I like no. I like the person that I sell myself as online is very much the same person I'm in real life, and that extends to my personality, my beliefs, like everything. Yeah, no. I would never like publicly advocate for something that I don't believe in, like privately as well.
Well, it's not about public, but it's like, what's the correct thing to do.
No, yeah,
like,
no. I'm pretty. I like if I say something, it's because I feel that way, and it's because I believe it to be the case. Yeah, and then some things I don't know all the time. Like I might be like kind of doubting a little bit, but like I'll be public about it as well. Like I could be swayed on this particular thing or something. Like I could do stuff like that too. Yeah.
Okay. Then going further on to that, like for example, just even saying like I might be a little bit off here, but even something like Brexit, for example, where it's like, you feel that the right thing to do is to do a referendum, but the correct thing to do is, in terms of like the system, is to not undermine democracy. Is there other things like that you sort of noticed in terms of like how yourself or other people deal with, where people like, there's like, this is what I feel will be good, but there's like a process that you sort of have to abide by?
Can you say that again? What do you mean by that? Like,
It might be a little bit off here, and we just might move on. But like with Brexit, like a lot of people you've talked about this as well in the past,
mm-hmm.
about how Brexit, it would be great if we had a second, or if the British people had, the Britbongers had a second referendum,
mm-hmm.
but it's, it's not good to undermine that democratic process.
Mm-hmm.
The other things, especially like with positions you hold, which I might be wrong in connecting them a little bit, but with the sort of thing where it's like keeping that consistency, but then at the same time being like, what, this might be better.
So are you asking me if I notice that other people don't care about consistency, or?
Oh no, what about for you? Is there anything like, I'm just trying to throw out like examples that you?
Oh yeah, I mean, like at the end of the day, like I'm just trying to point towards some consistent rule set that would like deliver good results. Like I don't necessarily intrinsically care about democracy, but I think democracy is pretty good because it does a lot of good things. And that when you start undermining that democratic process, that it can be undermined in ways that we really wouldn't want it to be undermined. So for instance, maybe you leave a referendum up to your country for whether or not you should run for a fourth term, and they say no. That like undermining the results of that referendum might lead to like a lot of bad things. In undermining the referendum for Brexit, might seem good because Brexit is fucking horrible, but like those democratic processes should probably be respected. Otherwise, they erode and they don't mean as much in the future. It is kind of my thought process. Yeah, which is not quickly. You don't want that. You don't want people feeling like their votes don't matter, which people already kind of don't. So yeah.
Yeah. Quick side note from there with the Bolivia thing. Do you think because of how you've dealt with the left wing people, or the lefties, not left wing, I don't really go that far, but lefties,
mm-hmm.
how you sort of perceived and went into going into Bolivia and looking at all this stuff had any effect to sort of how you saw the results and how you came to your opinion on it?
I hope not. I mean, I like to think not, that I viewed everything like in a pretty non-biased, like in a pretty reasonable manner.
Okay. Well, getting back into sort of the more moral ideology questions, how do you want to put it?
Mm-hmm.
Am I correct with saying that you sort of go by like a consequentialist, egoist perspective? Am I wrong?
Yeah,
I'm not too.
Yeah, to not get like super into philosophy, but something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not 100% like well versed in this by any metric. I'm just sort of just going by questions, just what I want to ask.
Mm-hmm.
And so I find from that perspective sometimes that certain topics that, especially, it might seem, depending on how you sort of perceive how you would go, but from that sort of perspective, can be different in terms of how you get to that. For example, global warming. This is one that I sort of sat with on that one.
Mm-hmm.
Like you and I probably won't be affected dramatically by global warming. Am I wrong with that, or am I just
for sure? I'm relatively wealthy. I can move wherever I want. Yeah, it's probably not going to be that bad for somebody like me. Yeah.
So, if global warming, why do you feel obliged then if you come from a perspective that's like, you know what, I could be
Wait, let
wrong
me
again.
rephrase that. I won't be as negatively impacted as other people, but I definitely still will be like negatively impacted. Like, I'm
Yeah.
like, that's going to be a horrible, catastrophic thing for a lot of people. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. But going from like a consequentialist perspective, from your point of view, do you think sometimes, or has it come to your perspective that like, you know, like I'm not trying to be global warming denialist here. I'm trying to do this sort of responsibly.
Mm-hmm.
Do you sometimes come from the consequentialist perspective, you know, that the consequences won't affect me of global warming as much as the consequences of trying to stop it?
Well, I don't think there are very many consequences of me trying to stop it, and I do think that like it will. Global warming is something I just don't talk about because it's so hard to look at because like the solutions are impossible right now because it would require like so many different countries working together that like it seems like it seems like impossible that it'll actually be solved. So I don't actually think about this too much. It's hard to quantify like what would the cost be for dealing with climate change? What's the personal cost? Like what would happen if it went through? Like the policies that would help climate change. So like banning a lot of travel or severely curbing people's energy consumption. What would it look like if climate change like occurred and like places started flooding and everybody moved inland? Like I don't know like what that would be like. Yeah. So I don't know. It's like, climate change issues are so hard to talk about because it's like everything is like what happens in both spectrums is so catastrophically impossible to think about. Like, what does it look like a worldwide effort combating climate change versus what does it look like if climate change occurs and everything starts flooding and everything is fucked? Like, yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Well, so do you care about global warming then in terms
Yeah,
of
of
that
course. I
regard?
think it's probably the biggest like unified threat facing like mankind, or the biggest threat facing like a unified mankind. That it's something we should all care about. But yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would, but from your perspective, because you don't care much, I could be wrong again, necessarily about people as a. I don't want to get necessarily too sort of assuming what you believe, but let's hypothetically say that global warming will pretty much happen after you died. Would you care about global warming?
I think at that point, the only thing you can appeal to is that like I care about my son. I care about the world that he lives in, so I'd try to do something good for him. I mean, if I didn't have a kid, then at that point, maybe I just wouldn't give a fuck at all.
Okay. Okay. Um, Another thing that I just want to go on to moving about is you mentioned I was watching a stream the other night. You mentioned that you were being too nice, or you were very nice and you're being too nice towards people. What did you mean by that?
I'm very, very, very charitable to people that I talk to, and I let people squirm out of and wiggle away from uncomfortable answers way too much. Yeah, that's something that I need to be more comfortable being more mean to people. And I think I've gotten a lot better at that. Like, I had a conversation last night with somebody who I was able to be, like, adequately firm with after they'd given some, like, ridiculous takes that in the past I probably would have let them slide a lot on it. Yeah.
Okay. Even because you said you talked to the person last night about trans topics.
Yeah.
Do you find that one personally for yourself? Because I know you've talked about this in the past, sort of, that trans can be like a very difficult thing to maneuver.
Yeah, of course, for sure.
Do you, because sometimes it's like there's always this like back and forth in terms of, I don't necessarily want to say something that come across, I guess, badly, I guess is the thing. But sometimes like with trans conversations, etc., can come a little bit sort of circular, in terms of like I believe, therefore I am sort of regards in terms of like social conditioning and social factors or whatever. Dealing with conversations like that, do you ever get worried that sometimes it might just revolve to that? And do you get ever uncomfortable with certain topics like that?
Well, like when it just gets like incredibly personal with people, or what do you mean?
Yeah, well, sort of, because what I've noticed, especially about like trans topics, especially, is that like I like you go along with the processes, and like yes, like the social factor thing, like that makes, yes, I understand like how you can get from A to B to C to D, E to F, what do you want to call it? But sometimes like a lot of those conversations can ultimately just end up in personal experience, and it's very hard to debate that with someone who doesn't agree with that. Do you feel uncomfortable sort of getting into topics like that, where it sort of sometimes might just end up with like, you know, some people feel like this, some people feel like that, that's just the way it is?
No, I'll debate any topic like that. I guess usually what I try to do is point out that they're being irrational, or that like their personal experience like doesn't supersede, like, you know, like whatever we would say is like factually correct with some issue, or whatever. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I don't want to get too much into that because I don't want to like say something dumb or anything like that with that.
Sure.
Uh, the last thing is about your music and
Just
like your
wanted
music
to
takes,
find out if the
etc.
bot could say these letters
Yeah, look, I love sort of
E-O-I-I-O-E-O-I.
going watching your stream and seeing like all of the variety of music that sort of comes from your what you listen to, etc. One I don't want to be the person who goes, what kind of music do you like? Because that's obviously like a dumb question to a lot of people. But what elements, like when you hear a song, what elements to you stand out that make you connect with a song? Is it like the composition of a song, the lyrics, the dynamics, the chord progression, the melody? Like what type of things from there really stand out to you when you listen to a song? What makes you
mainly it has to do with like the chord progression and the melody, basically. Yeah. So it can be like from a lot of different genres or whatever, but that's generally what I look for. But I mean, like, there's a lot of other things that I it's really hard to say, like, why do I like music or why do I like certain songs? It's like impossible to like truly say, but
okay, I understand. Yeah. Is there a genre you feel like is completely overrated?
No, I don't think so.
No. Okay.
No. I don't. It'd be hard to say like a whole genre of music is overrated. I don't think. Yeah.
Well, not like, but is there a lot of music where you sort of go, like, you know what? I don't understand this one.
Oh yeah, of course. There's tons of music like that. But if I don't understand it, I just don't understand it. Like I can't like get into like Death Grips, for instance. But like, I don't know if that means Death Grips is shit or overrated. It's just something I don't like at all.
Come on, own your position, Destiny. All right, stop pivoting. All right, come on, let's be real.
When you ask me on art to say some art is overrated, that's a really
come on,
hard
own
one.
your position. Let's be. Come on.
Okay.
Stop pivoting.
You want to know what's in it? You want to know what's overrated? Is fucking In and Out. There you go. Okay, that's my. I'll do food takes. We want to go on what's overrated there.
Oh, pivot, pivot, Destiny.
Yep, that's what I do.
Couldn't answer a question about art. Has to go to food. Obvious.
Yep, that's what I do.
Last question. What's your problem with men with long hair?
I don't have a problem. I personally just don't like it. Probably because I grew up like very conservative. So.
That's hurtful.
I'm sorry.
Us long-haired people, very offended, very hurt. Yeah.
Well.
It's facts don't care about your feelings. I get it.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think that's where we'll wrap up today. It's been an absolute great conversation with you, Destiny. Thanks so much for doing this again.
Yeah, no problem.
It was a great conversation. I really appreciate it. Best conversation ever. But for those on my channel who don't know who you are, but I'm pretty sure most people will ever, who will see this probably know who you are. But in the off view, who are you? What do you do? Where can I find you?
I'm Destiny. I talk about politics and I play video games and we do philosophy as well sometimes. And I'm on twitch.tv/Destiny or youtube.com/Destiny or instagram.com/Destiny. Follow me there too.
Awesome. Well, everyone watching on YouTube, go to links down below. Follow Destiny, follow my stuff as well. And everyone, thanks for watching. Hopefully I'll get another interview out in the future sometime. So bye-bye.
Right. Cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for doing this. Really appreciate it. It's pretty early for me in the morning, so I was not as sharp as I was wishing to be.
Wait, wait. It's really early for you. Isn't it like fucking 4 a.m. or some crazy shit?
No, it's not that early. I had to get up at like 6.
Oh, what time is it now?
It's 9 something.
Oh, okay. You Australians, you're on a real weird time zone over there, but okay.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's great. It's perfect. It's pretty much the same time zone though as Japan, I'm pretty sure though.
Yeah, Korea and Japan and all that shit, yeah.
Yeah, the best things. No, thank you very much. No, I really do appreciate this. I'm just gonna make a shout out. Okay.
Yeah,
it's fine if I make a shout out.
Shout out whatever the fuck you want. Go for it.
Hell yes. All right. DGG. Okay. I need to get to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. Please. Okay. I'm 100 and something away. You got to help me do this. Okay. All right. I need you to help me. Okay. I've had interviews with Cool Cat, the actor from Cool Cat. I got into. Wait, do you know Cool Cat?
Nope.
Destiny?
What's that?
Cool Cat, one of the worst like movies of like all time. It's like a very bad, funny movie. And it's like infamously bad. Like YMS, he did like a video of it and he like basically destroyed it, and it's gotten like crazy popular online. And I interviewed like the lead actor and whatever, and got into a massive argument with the director of it. But anyway, please get me to 1,000 subscribers. I'll appreciate it if it does. Anyway, thank you very much for having me on.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Hopefully talk soon. Another point. Also come to Australia. It's better than New Zealand.
I'll think about it. Okay. Have fun.
Okay. All right. See you later.
All right. Have a good one, man. See you later. Bye. Theoretically, Hong Kong could reorganize their government and they could do it all officially within Hong Kong law, but China could come over and be like, no, we actually supersede you, so on.